National Resources Fund Bill passed amid chaos in the National Assembly. Captured fugitive confesses the Deon Charles murder. Minister of Human Services and Social Security recognizes the first group of persons with disabilities who have recently finished the specialized ICT training. In the region, coronavirus pandemic, Latin America becomes the most vaccinated continent, and internationally, European countries tighten COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron spreads. Greetings and welcome to another edition of Channel 2 Headline News Updates. I am Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. The National Resources Fund Bill was approved in Parliament late last evening amid a dramatic session. Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, was encircled by government members, while opposition members of Parliament tapped tables, blew whistles, and chanted, "No thieving law will pass." After many calls for the order to be maintained, Speaker of the House Mansour Nadir briefly suspended the Assembly. However, the demonstrations continued on the resumption, with an opposition member grabbing the Speaker's mace.
What's this?
Sir, that Natural Resource Fund Act, sir, in fact, is one of the most vulgar, and so we are witnessing now unprecedented vulgarity.
In a statement by President Mohamed Irfan Ali on Tuesday, he said the National Resources Fund Bill 2019 was unconstitutional and placed the vested power of the Sovereignty Fund in the hands of the Minister of Finance.
So, the old act did not allow for any of this. For a matter of fact, it was the sole authoritative authority of the Minister of Finance doing all of this, determining the fiscal sustainable amount, determining the economic sustainable amount. That was in his opinion. That was in his opinion the best possible framework or scenario for Guyana. So when we talk about the powers that existed in the old act, we have to speak about the powers that was vested in a singular individual, the Minister of Finance. So what we sought to do was to remove the extraordinary powers that was vested in the Minister of Finance by addressing these flaws. So the new bill drastically reduces the powers, functions, and responsibilities of the minister. It introduces a board of directors and grant the board almost all of the powers previously vested in the Minister of Finance.
The bill, which was tabled last week in the National Assembly, sees the reduction of an oversight committee from 22 persons to 9 persons and the inclusion of a board to manage the Natural Resources Fund to be appointed by the President. Nonetheless, opposition Member of Parliament Royce Delford and the leading attorney for the APNU-AFC contends that the Natural Resources Fund Bill was not legally passed.
Guyanese, the reality of tonight's sitting of the National Assembly is that the Natural Resource Fund Bill number 20 of 2021 was not legally passed in the National Assembly. First, the mace, which is the symbol of authority, which must be present throughout the deliberations and sittings of the National Assembly when a law is to be passed, was not present. Secondly, the standing orders state that a member of the National Assembly must be in his or her seat to vote in the National Assembly. Most of the government MPs and members of Parliament were out of their seats, especially the Prime Minister, who was on his feet, waving. It is clear that there was no legal vote carried tonight in the National Assembly.
Leader of the People's National Congress Reform, Aubrey Norton, said this was a barefaced attempt by the government to get rid of the Act of 2019.
The PNCR believes that one, the government knows the standing orders. Two, that the Speaker knows the standing orders. To the extent that they were prepared to violate them is worrying. as was said in the statement, we agree that if the mace is not in place, and I invite people to Google it, Google if the mace is not in place in Parliament, and you will see it will come up, that there can be no law passed if the mace isn't in place. Secondly, from my own experience in the Parliament, you have to be in your seat to pass a law or a motion. And to the extent that they were not in their seats, then the law could not have passed.
However, during a press conference held today, the Speaker of the National Assembly spoke about the circumstances regarding the legality of the Natural Resources Bill.
Make it pellucid that the bill was passed lawfully, legally last evening in the National Assembly. For the authority of Parliament to conduct its business and to ensure that the business of Parliament is lawful and legal, two main ingredients must be present. One, that we have a quorum, and two, the authority of Parliament, the mace, must be in place, must be in Parliament, lying, pointing to the government side, and then they head to the government side and the opposition. Last evening, when the mace was violently removed by members of the opposition, we had a replica mace.
Nader said the two requirements for a bill to be passed were in place at the time the vote was taken.
The smaller mace that we used last evening is an exact replica of the mace that was presented to Guyana by the House of Commons when we became independent. And so the mace was in place. Shortly before I put the question on the Natural Resource Bill, and it's there on the live feed, the recording. I called for members to take their seats, because a person can only speak or vote from their seat. And I kept monitoring, and I noticed that they had almost all of the government members their seats. That was when I put the question. So let it be pellucid that the two ingredients necessary for the lawful passage of bills, motions in the National Assembly were present, the mace was in place, and the vote was taken while the members were in their seats. The majority of members were in their seats.
The government used their one-seat majority to pass the bill despite the continuous chant of no by members of the opposition. Stick around after the break. Minister of Human Services and Social Security recognizes the first group of persons with disabilities who have recently finished specialized ICT training, and captured fugitive confesses to Deon Charles' murder.
Shop at John Lewis Styles in December and you could win one Amazon Fire tablet every day. Yes, every day. And that's not all. 4 persons will win $500,000 to spend in the store. Just imagine, $500,000 to spend on clothing, footwear, watches, fragrances, handbags, luggage and accessories. So shop now at John Lewis Styles to win one Amazon tablet every day and $500,000 to spend in the store. John Lewis Styles, simply different.
Good girl forget things.
Who's
What's the problem, Granny? I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn.
Survival Shopping Complex brings to you its delivery service, Shop through WhatsApp. This process is simple. All you need to do is call or message your grocery list to 613-9683 and we will select your items for you and have them delivered directly to you, even out of town. This is convenient because we can stay on the phone with you as we select your favorite brands. We're happy to do your shopping for you. Contact us on WhatsApp today and shop Price Smart at Survival Shopping Complex.
Taxi service, transportation for every occasion, short drop, airport, weddings, funerals, and much more. We're located at Lot H. Durbin and Vicingen Road, next to Green City Bar. For honest, efficient, and reliable service, call Kingdom Based Taxi Service at 648-5959 or 227-7937. You can count on us.
Welcome back. This week, Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Dr. Vinay Prasad, distributed assistive aids, tablets, and wheelchairs to the first batch of people with disabilities who recently completed a specialized ICT training. The items are to assist those persons in continuing their studies and practicing at home. The participants were also encouraged to continue their efforts to educate themselves after completing the course through Nations University. Minister Prasad congratulated the attendees and noted that the ministry is giving a variety of free courses to people with disabilities, with over 600 people likely to benefit. In 2022, Minister Prasad plans to engage persons with disabilities to bring them up to date on all the initiatives and programs that the ministry has planned for the future. A major one is the operationalizing of the center that is being built in Mahika Hospital compound. A fugitive on the run suspected of involvement in Deon Charles' murder was captured in another country. Esther Soares has more.
Wanted 18-year-old murder accused Ezekiel Hawker was arrested on Wednesday, December 27, 2021 by law enforcement officials in Suriname. Hawker is being sought in a connection with the murder of Deon Charles in All Boys Town in December 24, 2021. Local investigators alerted Suriname's officials that the suspect had fled to Suriname in an attempt to evade capture. As a result, Hawker was arrested and handed over by officials from Suriname to our local investigators, who promptly arrested him and placed him into custody. Following that, the accusation of murder against Deon Charles was presented to Ezekiel Hawker, also known as Alpha, who admitted to committing the act under caution. He told investigators that he shot and killed Deon Charles, who had previously shot him on 2 occasions after seeing him on Christmas Eve night on James Street, Alboystown. Investigators also have in custody the driver of the motor car that transported the suspect to and from the scene. He is also cooperating with the detectives. The probe is ongoing, and upon completion, the case file will be sent for legal advice. For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. Morris Torres was charged today when he appeared at the Bartica Magistrates Court for attempt to commit murder, possession of a firearm without a license, and possession of ammunition without license. Torres appeared before Magistrate Crystal Lambert, where the charges were read to him, and he pleaded guilty to the latter 2 charges. As a result, he was fined $100,000 for each charge and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. He is required to return to court on January 17, 2022, to answer to the charge of an attempt to commit murder. Don't go way after the break. Coronavirus pandemic, Latin America becomes the most vaccinated continent, and foreign policy priorities for U.S. Biden administration in 2022. But before that, here's the bridge retraction schedule.
When you need money and you gotta get it fast, Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 46 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brickdam and White Castle Fish Shop. Be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
Furnishing your home or office has never been easier. Here at Kissoon's, our inventory of locally made and imported furniture, offered at amazing prices, will leave you wanting more. From vinyl, floor rugs and carpets, bedroom, dining and living room sets, mattresses, pillows, office desk, chairs and filing cabinets, outdoor benches and tables. We have a piece of furniture for every room imaginable in your home or office. Check out our flagship store at Industrial Site Rijnveld or one of our branches in New Amsterdam, Port Morant, Riverton and Camp Street. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 50 years.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at news in the region and around the world. The Omicron variant has now been identified in almost a dozen countries in Latin America, but health experts says South America is in good shape to tackle the mutation as it is currently the world's most vaccinated region. Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapallo reports.
A vaccination site in Mexico City. An increase in COVID-19 cases linked to the holiday season has also led to a rise in the number of people seeking the jab.
I feel safe about everything because of the support that the government is giving us. We believe that everything is going to be all right because of the vaccine.
But Mexico isn't the only country in the region stepping up vaccination efforts. With the Omicron coronavirus variant identified in almost a dozen Latin American countries, a new push for contagion prevention is underway. In Brazil, which just a year ago was considered the epicenter of the pandemic in South America, vaccine drives have become among the most successful in the world.
Despite the fact that the President of the Republic is one of the most vocal leaders against the vaccine in Brazil, the Brazilian population is already used to many vaccination campaigns and is being massively vaccinated.
Despite a long struggle to launch national vaccine programs, recent data suggests that South American countries now have the world's highest vaccination rates. World health experts have also applauded the efforts by Argentina and Mexico to jointly produce more doses of the AstraZeneca jab, seen as a milestone for vaccine accessibility. While these recent developments are hopeful, health authorities in the region warn the dangers of contagion are still high, especially as the Omicron variant reaches new corners of the globe.
The COVID-19 epidemic is substantially the same. If a fourth wave will happen because of Omicron, what we might see is a high number of cases but a significantly low rate of hospitalizations compared to what we had in the previous waves because of the effects of the vaccine.
Experts from the Pan American Health Organization warn that vaccine inequality continues to be a major challenge in the region, adding that several Latin American countries are still far from the 50% vaccination threshold necessary to reach full COVID-19 immunity. Manuel Rapallo, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
Internationally, US President Joe Biden took office promising to undo his predecessor Donald Trump's America's First foreign policies, while Biden has engaged more fully with global institutions such as NATO and the World Health Organization. His administration's handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan was widely viewed as botched. An analyst says he will have to tread carefully with China, Russia, and the ongoing talks with Iran. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher reports.
If the White House was a circus, Joe Biden would be plate spinner in chief. As he enters into his second year in the Oval Office,
good afternoon.
He's got a lot to do, both internationally and domestically.
This is a worldwide challenge.
And the consequences, if one of the plates fall, could be the effective end of his presidency by the end of the year. Top of the list of challenges, like it was when he was sworn in, is COVID. After confidently claiming he was, in his words, kicking the virus's butt in July, it came roaring back, and now Omicron has to be dealt with. A lockdown is unlikely, another economic shock isn't. And with job numbers not where they should be, and the cost of basic goods rising, President Biden needs some good news for American families.
Bravo!
He delivered an infrastructure bill. His Build Back Better bill is essentially dead, but he still believes he can get parts of it through Congress, increasing help to American families. But some Washington watchers say he still has other campaign promises to deliver.
Democrats have been so badly out-messaged, and their messaging is so atrocious that Even with Build Back Better, they're going to have a difficult time. They have lost the battle, the messaging battle on inflation, and inflation is indeed hurting a lot of Americans.
November brings midterm elections, normally considered a referendum on those in the White House.
I'm not recommending for every future president that they take a shellacking like I did last night.
Biden has an approval rating of under 50%. That could mean him losing the House, maybe even the Senate. Now try getting anything done in Washington, with both houses not in your control.
What is happening in Ukraine?
So he could turn to foreign policy to get wins before the 2024 presidential election, where those closest to him say he'll run again. The pictures of the frantic withdrawal from Afghanistan haunt the Biden White House. If the country again becomes a base for Islamic militants, he'll bear the burden for the failures of his and other administrations. He wants a new nuclear deal with Iran. There are talks, but they have to deliver. America is worried about China's growing influence, its expanded military, its economic power. Talks between the two leaders effectively went nowhere. And then there's Russia. With cyber attacks, increased activity on the Ukraine border, Biden's White House seems to be waiting to respond to what comes next.
I think he's already had some important foreign policy successes. I think that the United States has sent a strong signal to Russia with European partners that if Russia invaded Ukraine, it would pay major costs. And I think that's likely to continue to deter Russia from invading Ukraine going forward.
As Biden heads into the new year, he's hoping delivering big domestic success will make Americans feel better about where the country is going.
We can deliver real people results that are going to affect their lives.
But if they don't, they could decide they don't like the act, and it's time for the Biden circus to move on. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
And finally, across Europe, people are queuing outside COVID-19 testing centers as Omicron cases surge. While the coronavirus variant appears less severe, officials says the sheer number could still overwhelm hospitals. Al Jazeera's Nufir Barker reports.
Across Europe, there are queues outside COVID-19 testing centres as a surge of coronavirus infections takes hold. Here in Greece, planned restrictions have been brought forward after the number of cases more than doubled in a day. The World Health Organization, the moral conscience of the crisis, marked 2 years since the start of the pandemic with a warning to rich nations racing ahead with their vaccine booster drives.
This is the time to rise above short-term nationalism and protect populations and economies against future variants by ending global vaccine inequity. I want governments, industry, and civil society to work with us on a campaign that targets 70% vaccine coverage in every country by the start of July.
Many world leaders, including the British Prime Minister, have thrown their weight behind getting a third dose of a COVID vaccine into as many arms as possible. We know Omicron's a milder variant and that those admitted to hospital are spending less time there, but it's highly contagious, meaning large numbers could still need hospital care. It's also affecting frontline staff numbers. Absences tripled in London's hospitals this month, and nearly 10% of the city's firefighters called in sick.
The overwhelming majority of people who are currently ending up in intensive care in our hospitals are people who are not boosted. I've talked to doctors who say the numbers are running up to 90% of people in intensive care who are not boosted. If you're not vaccinated, you're 8 times more likely to get into hospital altogether.
In Germany, an urgent appeal for people to rein in New Year celebrations. The number of cases there is now believed to be 2 to 3 times higher than official figures.
Please celebrate in very small numbers and do not endanger each other, because the current reported incidence of cases undermines the danger we are currently in.
The rise of Omicron has dashed hopes that the worst of the pandemic is over. But the WHO insists 2022 must be the year it comes to an end. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
And that is it for today's regional and international news. Here now is your 3-day weather forecast. And that is all for this edition of Channel 2 Headline News Updates. Tune in on Friday at 5:30 p.m. for another episode. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, please take care of yourself and each other.